The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is a masterpiece in game design, exploration, and freedom of gameplay, which was rightfully awarded Game of the Year by so many, including us, in 2017. Nevertheless, this doesn't mean that Breath of the Wild was flawless. Far from it, as the ultra non-linear approach to the game came at the expense of the dungeons, bosses, final boss, and most importantly, the story of the game. And it is the last one of these that we will go into further detail in this episode of the Next Zelda Game. Warning: the following video will spoil a number of key plot points of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. If you haven't finished the game, don't watch this video, but please leave a like for us warning you in advance. Ready? Then let's go.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Next Zelda Game, the show that goes over some of the big questions that the Next Zelda Game exclusive for Nintendo Switch faces. Today we are asking the question, will the Next Zelda Game come with a better story? Now don't take us wrong, we think the story in Breath of the Wild was good, with a deep and emotional backdrop, interesting characters, and a Princess Zelda who went through some of the greatest personal struggles and character developments we have seen in the series. In fact, on its own, in its complete state with all cutscenes, diaries and journals, the plot in Breath of the Wild is actually one of the better in the series. After all, it took us 15 plus minutes to summarize it in our Zelda timeline video. But
the big problem is the way the story was structured and conveyed to us, the player. And to avoid this mistake from returning in the next Zelda game, we have to address this once and for all. The story in Breath of the Wild isn't the problem, it is the way it was chopped up and then scattered across Hyrule. That and the fact that the clear majority of the plot in Breath of the Wild are memories from 1 century ago, which we as the player never experienced in the first place. The presentation and fragmentation of the story is a problem in Breath of the Wild, when, while exploring Hyrule aimlessly in our first playthrough, could uncover cutscenes after Zelda's change of heart towards Link, or even worse, after the calamity has hit and destroyed Hyrule Castle and town prior to all other memories. This way, you could end up with late game spoilers because you found the second to last memory prior to any of the other ones. And seeing that this one is actually one of the places you might stumble upon early in the game, then that's a major issue. No one wants the ending spoiled for them prior to reading what built up to it. And this is the key issue in Breath of the Wild. Your first impression of the story can be awful after being introduced to it by King Rhoam Bosphoramus Hyrule at the Temple of Time, and then the aging Impa at Kakariko. From this point onward, after visiting Pura at the Hateno Ancient Tech Lab and showing the images saved from a century ago, Link is sent on a quest to recover his memories.
And though the images found in the album are structured in chronological order, the design of Breath of the Wild and the world of Hyrule makes it really hard to not stumble upon one of these. Walk up to the shimmering with light spot, press A, and watch a certain memory. This way, my second captured memory that I uncovered in Breath of the Wild was the 15th one, Return of Calamity Ganon. Yeah, I did not enjoy that I missed everything prior to this one and had the entire build up to this scene ruined.
Now we all know that the story is rarely the strongest side of the Zelda games, with the exception of Skyward Sword, and though freedom and choice was essential in the first Zelda NES games, it is by all means greatly appreciated. In Breath of the Wild, the Zelda team went too far with ditching story in favor of gameplay. Specifically, the retrospective nature and the lack of NPCs surround you in the moment before and after you witness all of the memories of the past sucks you out of the urgency of the events that you just witnessed, and believe it or not, makes you in a large extent indifferent to them. And this, along with potentially getting spoiled because the way the memories are laid out are the seeds of the problem we have to confront and fix prior to the next Zelda. Since there's no real sense of urgency in Breath of the Wild, every moment of urgency takes place in the past. This stands in very stark contrast to Skyward Sword's confrontation at the Gates of Time and Twilight Princess's confrontation against Zant, where you can, with your own eyes, be the witness on how NPCs interact with you in a moment of crisis. For real, this can't be understated. Taking the player out of the action is the worst thing you could do for your storytelling.
And the worst part is that it didn't have to be like this. It would have been enough that the cutscenes were a result of a build-up where you are in control of said character in the past. Say that you actually fought the monsters we see slain in the memory taking place near Death Mountain. That would have been awesome and added so much more to that scene. Having an actual NPC standing there as you are in control next to you, and then when you are successful, leads you into the cutscene that gains so much more value, and is a testament of the magnitude of just what transpired. This is why the series sections in The Witcher 3 worked so well, as we were in control of the character in a gameplay setting in the past, but we were right there and then. You can tell a story centered in the past, but you can't make the player feel too detached from the events. And that is exactly the mistake that Breath of the Wild did with the memories from 100 years ago. But this isn't the only problem with Breath of the Wild's storytelling, as the present-day events and cutscenes are completely overshadowed by the events of the past. In many ways, Breath of the Wild should have been titled Breath of the Past, as the game is stuck in the past and the present events are time and time again put in a secondary role. With the exception of perhaps Sidon, since the Zoras live way longer than the other races of Hyrule, and where most of them were around prior to the Great Calamity.
Another unintended consequence of the story setting a backseat, fragmenting it, and then excluding you, the player, from taking part in the past event, is that an otherwise well-written story never reaches its full potential, due to how elements are presented and fragmented, so it never really resonates with the players to the degree it could have. The ultimate result is indifference, and with Nintendo stating on numerous occasions that Zelda is Nintendo's story-driven series, this cannot continue in the next Zelda title, which will hopefully have the same level of freedom, but tell a more bound and linear story when it is actually needed, not when you stumble upon it. In other words, the next Zelda game should focus more on the story of Link, his struggles in this new reality after the calamity is gone. This in itself is why we need a Hero of the Wild sequel, with Link wearing proudly the cap, tunic and trousers of the Wild, while wielding the Master Sword. Breath of the Wild primarily focused on the tragedy of Princess Zelda and the deceased champions, while Link remains silent. Another quest might bring new details to life that will make us better understand Link and see how well he and Zelda will cope with the next crisis in Hyrule. But this time with a proper thread to follow to make us as invested in this plot as we were in Skyward Sword and Twilight Princess of what is going to happen next. Not at the end of the game, but within the next few minutes to keep under suspense and an emotional urgency as we fear for the characters we love. Breath of the Wild did an amazing job of getting us invested into the landscape and ruins of Hyrule, but failed to provide a narrative that could have enhanced our experience even further beyond.
The potential sequel, on the other hand, can combine the best of two worlds, having both an open air players can continue to explore at their own pace in whatever direction they choose, but have a side story, because that is what it was in Breath of the Wild, that needs to be followed in a set path. This way we can reach what I call a story acquisition with a specific order that is more coherent and digestible than anything found in Breath of the Wild's presentation. But as mentioned, this doesn't have to stop people or the game itself being a linear and bound experience like Skyward Sword, but rather a story that is there for you whenever you are ready to progress or face another challenge. That will say that the next Zelda game should be as non-linear as Breath of the Wild in its exploration and open air and secondary side quests, but where the dungeon and boss progression is more on par with one found in the lower world section of A Link Between Worlds, and that the story, though on paper optional like Breath of the Wild is told in a linear fashion where you can't just all of a sudden stumble upon the second to last memory without unearthing other cutscenes and hopefully play through the gameplay section attached to said cutscene.
And while we're at it, the story also suffered because of the poor writing for its villain Calamity Ganon. So I guess we will have to address that in a future video. But for now, this is our take on what was wrong about the storytelling in Breath of the Wild, and why and how the next Zelda game should have a better story. A big thanks to HMK for joining us in this video. We also joined him for his video on Breath of the Wild's 5 biggest weak points, so go and check it out in the end card. Also, make sure to appreciate the effort put into this video by liking it, and if you are new or haven't already, subscribe to the Commonwealth Realm and HMK and press that shiny notification bell to not miss any of our upcoming Zelda and Nintendo Switch videos.
Finally, guys, I'll be heading to Japan in 6 days from now, and if any one of you watching live in Tokyo and or Kyoto for that matter and would like to meet me in person, then message me on Commonwealth Realm. Just tweet to me, I will follow you, and then we can DM, and I will set up a meetup so we can meet at a specific location in central Tokyo. I don't know, maybe it will be Shibuya, maybe Akihabara. We'll find out. If you want to meet in Kyoto, it will most likely be in front of one of the Nintendo headquarters. So thank you so much for watching the video, and if you live in Japan, well, this is your opportunity to meet me when I go there 6 days from now. Joey, take it away.
Once again, a big thank you for 200,000 subscribers, and to our patreon.com/commonrealm patrons, who you can see on the screen right now, and in particular, royal producers Kenyatta Ali and Bradley Carriage. As always, thank you for watching, and we will see you all in the next one.